Hey everyone, what do you say? Gannon here, JGA 59, talking to you on a Wednesday morning. It's a little gray out there. The leaves are falling. It's October. We're almost into November. And I just thought today I'd share with you some managers cards. That I have that I just like. There are a couple of cards I wanted to include in this, but I was surprised to find I didn't have them. I thought I had them, a couple of them. But I got some nice ones here, and these were ones that struck me when I was a kid, and then some that I collected later on as an adult that again just struck me. And okay, well, you know what? Maybe we should keep the element of surprise here. All right, here's 1951 Charlie Dressen. He was also known as Chuck Dressen. And I just love this card, because of the chalkboard behind him and with some of the names of the Boys of Summer. You can see, Duke Snider's name, Cal Abrams, Carl Furillo, a few others. And I just love this card. 51 Bowman. Chuck, who once was a Dodger coach, returns as their manager in 1951. His playing days, which were mostly with the Reds, began with Moline of the 3I League in 1919 and wound up with the Giants in 1933. Look at the birth date on that. Isn't that amazing? His birth date is September 20th, 1898. Yeah, isn't that something? Wow. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just think that's a great card. Chuck Dressen. And actually, I have another one of his cards here I just thought was really great. This one is 1953 Bowman. Color Bowman. That's just a beautiful card. And I have another 1953 Bowman of Charlie Grimm. From all accounts, he was a lot of fun. I read Eddie Matthews' autobiography a while back, and he really liked Charlie Grimm. And Charlie Grimm was, he had a good sense of humor, and you can kind of tell that, just by looking at him, maybe, Yeah, Charlie Grimm. And I love this card of Casey Stengel. This is from 1959. He was one of the All-Star cards that year. And Casey giving direction. And what does it say on the back? Whoops. Sly old Casey, the pennant-winning genius who dotes I had to stop for a second because I was getting a phone call on the phone, and the phone told me the film would be suspended while I answered the call, but it was a spam call, so I didn't take it. So, at any rate, it says, Sly old Casey, the pennant-winning genius who dotes on double talk. Stengelese. But don't let that fool you. Casey Stengel knew exactly what he was doing, was a great manager. And, led the Yankees to many World Series and World Series wins. 1960, I wasn't crazy about the design, but I liked this one. Solly Hemus, who was managing the Cardinals at the time. I like the colors at the bottom, and this is a 1960 top Solly Hemus. And what do they have on the back? Oh. Okay, now my phone is telling me I have a new voicemail. I've been getting a lot of spam calls lately. and Fred Hutchinson. And again, I wasn't super crazy about the 1961 Topps design for manager cards, but this one is really distinguished, I feel. Great Fred Hutchinson. Sadly, passed away very young. And what do they have in the back? Yeah, okay. Right, he pitched. I have his 1952 Topps card where he's pitching for the Tigers. And then he went on to manage the Tigers. And he managed for a year in the Pacific Coast League. And he also managed the Cardinals in 1950. Okay, well, looks like 50. I can't tell because the print is so small. And I've got the phone between me and the card. And here he is, Ralph Houk, the Major. What this guy went through in World War II. He was something else. He was the guy he was the first manager I got to know when I was following the Yankees, which began in 1968. He was a manager then, and yeah, how long did he manage for? I guess he stayed through 73, 74. Then the Yankees got Bill Verdon, and then Billy Martin. But back in these days, the Yanks were winning really big time, the last days of their dynasty. And they won the World Series this year in 1962 against the Giants. Ralph Houk. I like this card. And here's another great 1962. Walter Alston. Yeah, I just like that. Cool card. And we got Eddie Lopat, 1963. I just remember having this card as a kid. When I started to collect, as a collector in the early 70s, this is one of the cards I got in one of the lots that, I bought through the Penny Saver. I'd put ads in the Penny Saver every now and then, and you'd get a few responses, and some kid would come over with a bunch of cards from different years, and one of them was this Eddie Lopat. Another cool 63 is the Danny Murtaugh. Shout out to Andy's Attic, who's a Pirates fanatic. That's a cool card. And I should really shout out Adam Vintage Sanctuary for Eddie Lopat. Another cool 63 card is Harry Kraft. For the Astros, with the Houston Astros, they were the Houston Colt 45s. And it's kind of interesting how the bottom of this card is different than the other 63 cards. Harry Kraft, a great baseball man. And I remember in 1964, this isn't the card I collected, but I remember getting this card in a pack, and I was always fascinated by, head coach. Why was he head coach? And I've researched it and I've forgotten it. The Cubs experimented with some kind of rotational system where they'd, put people in and out of the head coach position instead of having a manager. There's a whole rationale behind it, and I can't remember exactly. It was just, I don't know, to familiarize, to rotate the coaches and to get them to know the players. I don't know, sometimes they might go down to the minors. I'd have to research this again. Bob Kennedy, I was always fascinated by that. And another card I got in a pack in 1964 was this Bobby Bragan card, and I just was always taken by this card. His personality kind of jumps off the card. Here's a cool card. Bertie Tebbetts. And he was 1965. Yeah, he was a good player. Though Bertie spent most of his major league days with the Detroit Tigers, the former catcher played for the Indians in 1951 and 1952. The popular Mr. Tebbetts began his professional career in 1936, and just 2 years later, he was up to stay in the American League. During his 14 seasons as a major leaguer, Bertie caught over 1,000 ball games and came up with a solid .270 batting average. In 1942, 1948, and 1949, Bertie appeared as an American League All-Star in the Midsummer Classics and compiled a batting average of .286. In 1953, Bertie tried his hand at managing a baseball club in the American Association. A fine handler of baseball players and possessing an uncanny ability to make the right move at the right time, he was hired by the Reds as field manager in 1954. In 1956, Mr. Bertie Tebbetts was named Manager of the Year. I like that. That's a beautiful card. Now here's a card. It's a 1967 Venezuelan card. I believe the way you pronounce his name is Reynaldo Cordero. And he's just got a face that looks like it could tell a lot of stories. I don't collect the Venezuelan cards of American players, with the exception of a few. And I'm not interested in collecting Venezuelans that are merely reproductions of Topps baseball cards. When I collect the Venezuelans, I like to collect the Latin American ball players. And also, American players, like Cesar Tovar, Ron Klimkowski. There'd be others I'd be interested in getting. But, I just want to, learn a little bit about these other players who played in these other leagues. Yeah, Reynaldo Cordero. In 1968, as most of you know who follow me, was my first big year collecting. And I was just fascinated by the different managers' cards that year. I just thought Alvin Dark was really cool looking. Such a cool card. And then Eddie Stackey, I thought he was cool. Gil Hodges, I was just mesmerized by his countenance. He looked like a sage. Looks like a sage. Soft-spoken, quiet leader, a real leader of men. He was revered by his players, revered and respected. And I believe I spoke about Herman Franks in another video. Just thought that was a cool photo. Gene Mauch. Another great card. These are just great cards. Met him once, and he was very kind. Gene Mauch. I met him down in Florida at a spring training camp. It was the Braves and Expos spring training camp, and Gene Mauch was managing the Expos that year. It was the Expos' first season. Red Schoendienst. Yeah, I used to look at Red Schoendienst and also, let me see, do I have him here? Yes, I do. I used to look at him and Mayo Smith, when I was 9 years old. And I used to think these guys were ancient, Red Schoendienst had only been playing a few years before. He played, he was playing in the early 60s. But anyway, yeah, cool cards. Mayo Smith of the Tigers and Red Schoendienst of the Cardinals, and they met in the World Series that year. And this is actually a card I owned as a kid. You can see the tape at the top. 1969 Hank Bauer. I knew he was a Yankee from years ago, and I was really excited to get his 1969 Topps card. Hey, I've got a Hank Bauer card. And I taped it, on the wall by my desk. I did that with a few cards. And I love these backs. Hank hit safely in 17 straight World Series games. Some cool 1969 cards. Leo DeRozier. It's a great card. He's at Shea Stadium there. Cool one of Earl Weaver. And he is Al Lopez. You know, a lot of people, when they show an Al Lopez card, I think they show one of his Diamond Stars cards or something. But Al Lopez had a long career in baseball as a player and as a manager. There's an Al Lopez field down in Tampa Bay. Hugo would know about that. Yeah, it's a cool card. What does it say? Al managed the Sox to the 1959 American League pennant flag. It's kind of redundant, isn't it? Maybe they should use pennant or flag. Andy, it looks like I'm going to have to write Topps a letter. Joe Schultz, the first manager of the Pilots. He was involved, during the 1968 World Series when Lou Brock decided not to slide and Willie Horton threw him out. Doug Harvey, the umpire, called him out, and Joe Schultz was the third base coach for the Cardinals in 1968, and he was one of the first guys over there arguing. He didn't win that argument, though. Joe was just 13 when he pinch hit in a game in the Texas League. Wow. Okay, I only have a few more. I remember getting this card as a kid, the great Ted Williams, managing the Senators. Wow, to have a Ted Williams card. I think on the back, I think they've got, yeah. Love the backs of the 1970s. And I just have a couple more. One from the 1971 set. I thought this was a cool one of Preston Gomez, who was the first manager of the San Diego Padres, the Major League San Diego Padres. And the last card, well, not the last. Oh, I missed a couple. Yogi Berra, 1973 card. With his coaches Roy McMillan, Joe Pignatano, Rube Walker, and Eddie Yost. And I missed a couple 68s. Dick Williams. The year before that, he had led the Red Sox to the American League pennant, but they lost to the Cardinals in 7 games. I just thought this was a cool card of Dave Bristol, who was managing the Reds that year. And the last card I'll show is a football card. This is a 1960 card of the famous quarterback Sammy Baugh, who was the first head coach of the New York Titans, who later became the New York Jets. Sammy Baugh, slinging Sammy Baugh. Whoop. 1960 Fleer set. All right, so this is what I have for you today. I just thought I'd share some managers' cards. Holy smokes, I'm almost up at 20 minutes. If you stuck with me this long, I'll buy you a drink if I ever meet you. Until we meet again, I'll sign off right now. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.